When does a bunch of code and computer graphics become something that we call a video game, and what does it mean anyway? Now, this one has been hunting me for a while, and it's not that obvious as it may sound. Here's the thing. How is it that the term video game describes so many completely different products? Games for various platforms with different controls, camera view, art and narration style, different gameplay, different mechanics, and so on. Games are divided into dozens of different genres, which makes them even more diversified and sometimes impossible to compare with one another. You wouldn't compare Red Dead Redemption with Guitar Hero, but in legal terms both are classified as the same thing: video games. The same thing applies to sports. You wouldn't compare ski jumping to a tennis match or figure skating. Those are completely different disciplines, but at least they share the same principle. It's a competition when one of the party will eventually win. There's a strict list of rules that everyone has to follow. But it's kinda hard to find the principle that all games share. In fact, some of the new indie titles are so confusing that it's even hard to call them a game in the first place. This means that the whole medium is extremely complex, constantly changing, and that's confusing. Let's focus mostly on digital games, not all games in general, so I won't include RPGs, tabletop, or card games.
Did I ever tell you the definition?
There have been several approaches to define what games are, and most definitions proposed a list of basic features of a game, like a set of rules, a clear goal to achieve, a score that player wants to beat, obstacles and conditions of winning the game. And this list seems perfectly reasonable, but when you think about it, not exactly. It's a really old-fashioned way of thinking about games, and it may be applied to classical arcades. But what about games like Sims or MMORPGs? You can't really win it. The game will always continue and the score sometimes doesn't really matter. What about experimental, weird indie games that aren't even close to this list of features, or at least not directly? In my opinion, there is no point in creating a specific and accurate definitions of what games are. With the development of technology and the whole game industry itself, games will always evolve and change. Any definition will be outdated at some point, or will be not specific enough or too vague to describe all games on the market. Well, after saying this, I could actually roll the end credits. Why should we be concerned about what counts as a video game? Why does it matter? Well, take a look at other digital products. When you're buying a fancy text editing software, you kinda expect that it will allow you to write and format text. Same with movies or your favorite music album. You expect quality audio tracks that you can enjoy. But when you're buying a random video game, it can be literally anything. But still, you should expect something, right? What exactly? Any product labeled and sold as a computer game should be able to fulfill your expectations, or at least has some basic features that undoubtedly determines what kind of a digital product it is. After buying something that is falsely labeled as a game, you should go and get a refund, arguing that, well, it's not a video game at all. But how can you tell?
Is this a game, or is it real?
What's the difference?
Oh wow.
Imagine if someone is trying to sell an old bicycle labeled as a submarine. Or this movie labeled as a good adaptation of The Last Airbender. Or if death metal albums were described as the best music for dancing swing. Well, it wouldn't be fair. It misleads the consumer and it isn't right. Well, then maybe calling some extremely minimal or exotic projects games isn't fair as well. If we are not entirely sure what kind of products should or shouldn't be described as games, then this may cause problems. Some time ago, Extra Credits and PBS Game Show did a great job in discussion what is a game, presenting two completely different approaches to the question. Extra Credits stated that the whole argument is pointless, and looking for an answer to the question what is a game only limits us and will certainly not contribute to the development of the medium. In their approach, everything can be described as a game as long as the player will decide that way. The PBS Game Show has criticized this approach in a constructive and elegant way, pointing out that if anything can be a game, then nothing is a game really. If every activity and every product can be freely described as a game, then this term has no meaning and gives no information. One argument drew my attention: that as long as the player will decide that way, the thing that he or she is playing should be called a game. Because what's even the big deal? Every player will recognize and feel that this particular interaction is in fact playing a game, with no mistakes. When you see someone with a gamepad in front of PC or TV with some action on the screen, you will assume that there is some gaming going on. Well, maybe your dog will be a little confused about what the heck you're doing. But even after a short research, there are many titles that might be confusing even for the player. The gameplay experience isn't that obvious, and you might not have the feeling of playing an actual game in the first place. For example, playing Greyhack will look like you're writing some code or trying to hack into NASA. Playing Clock Simulator looks like you're just staring at a regular clock counting seconds. And playing The Life and Suffering of Sir Brandt looks like you're reading an interactive book. Another somehow confusing game that draw my attention is Kids. This one could be called an interactive experience. There's little instruction, little feedback, no user interface, and at some point there is a feeling of no purpose. Still, it's a quite interesting title. Even more confusing examples are A Blind Legend or Papa Sangre, because an obvious feature of digital games in general would be a graphical interface. Every game needs a way to present the information on the screen for the player. But with A Blind Legend or Papa Sangre, you don't need to look at the screen to play it. It doesn't display any visuals at all. Those are audio games, accessible to blind and visually impaired players. You can move your character, make decisions, or fight with gestures on your mobile device. Using surround headphones, you navigate through the game and listen to the story even with your eyes closed. Pretty cool idea. By going deeper with this whole question, it's getting even more interesting. We can agree that a video game is a program or an application with some interface and controls for the player to interact. And the main purpose of this program is to entertain us. But the question is, at what point does an interactive computer program become a game? For example, at what point does a simulation of a walking humanoid in an endless space become a game? Isn't it a game already? If not, why? It has controls, there is some environment and a character. You can control the humanoid, the map is enormous and empty. You have no idea what to do, but figuring out might be the first task in the game. Let's assume that it's not a game yet. What should we add to the program for it to be one? Let's add an instruction for the player: find the object. Cool, so there is something hidden on the map and we have to figure it out where it is and how to get there. There is no points of reference to show us directions though, except the shadow. Maybe I should follow my shadow and after a while I will find another clue. Adding this instruction changes the feeling of this program towards a game-like. But even without it, assuming that there is in fact something hidden on the map, it still might be considered as a game, at least a poor one. I could go on with dozens of examples about different unusual games and how they expand our understanding of this medium, but this material is getting too long. Maybe we can't really determine what makes a video game, maybe there is no clear answer, or maybe the answer changes with every new unusual game that breaks the rules. In every case, it's great to observe how diverse the world of games has become. Thanks for watching and see you next time.